Salam and her twin sister, Sammy, stepped out, their matching curls bouncing as they walked through the airport gates. They looked identical. Same almond eyes, same soft brown skin, same elegant smiles. But their hearts couldn't have been more different. Salam had come to Korea for one reason: to finally meet her long-distance boyfriend, Hwan, a gentle, charming Korean man she had met online 2 years ago. They had fallen in love through endless late-night calls, laughter, and promises under the same moon. Now she was here to make it real. But fate had a mischievous sense of humor. When Hwan arrived at the airport, his heart nearly stopped. He recognized Salam's photo from countless video calls. But seeing her in person felt like being struck by lightning. She was even more beautiful than he imagined. He ran forward, hugged her tightly, his smile radiant. Then his eyes shifted and met Sammy's. Her gaze was sharper, mysterious, like moonlight through mist. When she smiled politely at him, something deep inside Hwan shifted. A confusion he tried to bury immediately. "Welcome to Seoul," he said softly, his heart pounding for reasons he didn't understand. Over the next few days, Hwan showed the twins around the city. The vibrant streets of Myeongdong, the soft night lights of Han River, the cozy coffee shops tucked in quiet corners. Salam was affectionate and sweet, holding his arm and laughing easily. But Sammy, she stayed quiet, observing. And somehow, Hwan kept finding his eyes drifting toward her. It was the way she tilted her head when she thought, the quiet strength in her silence, the spark in her laughter when Salam teased her. He hated himself for noticing, but every time she looked away, he wanted her to look back. One evening, the three of them visited Namsan Tower. Couples around them hung love locks, whispering promises into the cool night air. Salam handed Hwan a small pink lock with their initials written in Amharic and Korean. He smiled, but as his fingers brushed hers, his eyes caught Sammy standing alone by the railing, watching the glittering skyline below. He excused himself and walked to her side. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said quietly. "Yes," she whispered. "It feels like the whole world is glowing." He turned to look at her, not the city, and said softly, "It is." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Dangerous, undeniable. Sammy looked away first, clutching her scarf to her chest, as if to stop her racing heart. Days turned into weeks, and Hwan found himself torn. He still cared deeply for Salam, yet his emotions betrayed him every time Sammy entered the room. She avoided him, but her silence screamed louder than words. One night, after dinner, Salam went to shower, leaving Hwan and Sammy alone in the living room. The air felt heavy. "You've been distant," he said quietly. "I should be," Sammy replied, her voice trembling. "You belong to my sister." He stood, took a slow step closer. "And yet," he paused, his chest rising and falling. "You feel this too, don't you?" Tears glistened in her eyes. "That's why I have to leave, Hwan." She turned, but he caught her wrist, gently, desperately. "Don't." For a long, fragile moment, they stood close, hearts racing, the city lights flickering outside the window like stars caught between them. "I never meant to fall for you," he whispered. "And I never meant to love you," she answered. "But love doesn't ask permission, does it?" The next morning, Sammy was gone. She left only a note. "Tell Salam she deserves your heart. I can't be the reason it breaks." Hwan searched for her across Seoul, the cafes they visited, the gardens she loved, the quiet corners where they'd shared laughter. When he finally found her standing by the Han River, tears streaked down her cheeks. He walked to her slowly, his voice raw. "You can run from me, Sammy, but not from what's real." She turned, shaking her head. "And what's real, Hwan?" He stepped closer, his hand trembling as it reached for hers. "This." Then, under the soft drizzle of rain, he kissed her, slow, deep, filled with everything he'd been holding back. At that moment, the world disappeared. The noise, the guilt, the confusion, all melted into the warmth of their lips. Weeks later, Salam found out. There were tears, heartbreak, silence. but also a bittersweet understanding. She saw the way Juan looked at Sammy, the way Sammy tried to hide her feelings, and she knew love couldn't be forced. Salam left for Ethiopia, promising forgiveness someday. The city moved on, but hearts didn't. A month had passed since Salam flew back to Ethiopia, leaving a silence that hung heavily over Seoul, especially between Juan and Sammy. They had chosen love, but love came with guilt. Every time Juan looked at Sammy, he felt the ache of what they'd lost: Salam's trust, the innocence of what could have been. Yet, when Sammy smiled, it was as if the world healed a little. One late afternoon, Juan found her at the Han River again, sketching quietly. Her hair blew softly in the wind, the same way it did the night he kissed her. He sat beside her, their knees brushing lightly. "You still come here," he murmured. She smiled faintly. "It's where I remember you being honest for the first time." He chuckled softly. "Then I should stay honest." He turned to her. "I don't regret falling for you, Sammy. I only regret the pain we caused your sister." Sammy closed her sketchbook. "Salam called me last night," she said. "She forgives us." Juan blinked. "She did." Sammy nodded slowly. "She said love doesn't always follow rules. She just wants me to be happy." Relief and tenderness washed over him. He reached for her hand, his thumb brushing the back of it gently. "Then let's not waste this second chance." Their love grew quietly, away from gossip, away from judgment. Juan took her to small places where no one knew them. Little bookstores, mountain trails, the old tea shop near Bukshan Hannock village where the smell of roasted barley filled the air. They shared whispered laughter, soft touches, and stolen moments that felt eternal. Sometimes at night, they'd walk through Gyeongbokgung Palace when the gates were closed, peeking through the bars, imagining what it would have been like to love each other in another lifetime. Maybe as a poet and a dancer, maybe as strangers fated to meet again. But reality wasn't as gentle as their dreams. One morning, Juan's mother, a graceful but traditional woman, called him for tea. She had heard whispers about a foreign woman living with him. "Juan," she said calmly, her eyes sharp. "Who is this Ethiopian girl people speak of?" He hesitated. "She's someone I love." Her gaze hardened. "You broke your engagement for her?" "It wasn't love," he said quietly. "This is." His mother's voice turned icy. "You shame the family name for a woman who doesn't belong to our world?" Those words cut deep, not just for him, but for Sammy, who overheard from the hallway. Tears welled in her eyes as she slipped quietly out of the house. That night, Juan found her sitting by the river again, knees drawn to her chest, staring at the water. "Why did you run?" he asked gently. Sammy turned to him, her voice breaking. "Because I don't want to be the reason you lose your family. I'm already the reason you lost my sister. I can't take more from you." Juan's jaw tightened. "You're not taking anything from me, Sammy. You're giving me something real." He knelt beside her, taking her trembling hands into his. "I've lived half my life doing what's expected, but with you I finally feel. You're not a mistake. You're the miracle I never asked for." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but her lips curved into a shaky smile. "Then promise me you'll never let go." "I swear it," he whispered. A year passed. Time healed wounds, and love softened even the hardest hearts. Juan's mother eventually met Sammy, not as an outsider, but as the woman who made her son smile again. And she saw something she couldn't deny: genuine love. On a quiet spring evening, cherry blossoms fell like pink snow as Juan led Sammy to the same Namsan tower where everything began. This time there were no secrets, no guilt, only the truth. He handed her a small silver lock engraved in both Korean and Amharic. As she read the words, tears filled her eyes. Juan cupped her face gently and whispered, "Will you be my forever this time, Sammy?" Her lips trembled into a smile. "I already am." And as they locked it together and kissed under the Seoul skyline, the wind carried their laughter, soft, free, and full of promise. Love had come full circle, from confusion to heartbreak to forgiveness. It bloomed again, stronger than before. Apartment they shared in Mapogu, a quiet neighborhood tucked between coffee shops and the hum of city life. Sammy was always the first to wake. She loved standing by the window, watching the early vendors open their stalls, the air filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and roasted coffee. Juan would soon join her, his hair tousled from sleep, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Still up before me," he'd whisper, his voice warm against her neck. "Someone has to make sure the city doesn't steal you before breakfast," she'd tease, leaning back into him. He'd chuckle softly, kissing her shoulder. "You already stole me long ago." They lived a simple, romantic rhythm that made every ordinary day feel special. In the mornings, Juan would make kimchi fried rice while Sammy brewed Ethiopian coffee she brought from home. Their kitchen is filled with the perfect blend of spice and sweetness, two cultures merging in the scent of love. Sometimes they'd play Amharic love songs while dancing barefoot on the kitchen tiles. Juan's rhythm was clumsy, but Sammy laughed every time he tried to sway his hips. "I'll never get this dance right," he'd groan. "You already did," she'd say softly, placing his hand over her heart. "You found the rhythm here." Afternoons were for small adventures. They explored traditional markets, tried new street foods, and often got lost in narrow alleys lined with lanterns and murals. Juan would snap secret pictures of her, laughing, tasting tekbaki, or squinting at signs in Hangul. One day, they wandered into a hanbok shop. The owner insisted they try some on. Sammy wore a soft pink and gold hanbok, her natural beauty glowing under the silk folds. Juan couldn't look away. "You look like a queen from another time," he murmured. She smiled. "And what are you then?" He grinned. "The fool who would cross centuries to find you." Evenings were their favorite. They'd sit on the rooftop with fairy lights strung above them, eating takeout and watching the city sparkle. Sometimes they spoke for hours, about their dreams, their fears, and what it meant to love someone from another world. Other nights, they didn't speak at all. They'd just sit together, fingers intertwined, the silence saying everything words couldn't. One night, as rain began to fall, Juan pulled her close under his jacket. "You know," he said softly, "people say love fades with time." Sammy smiled against his chest. "Then ours must not be people's kind of love." He kissed her forehead, his voice barely a whisper. "No, ours is forever kind." On weekends, Juan loved surprising her. Once, he decorated the living room with paper lanterns and Amharic calligraphy that said, "Fikir Yemiwedek," love that lasts. Sammy was speechless, tears brimming in her eyes as he handed her a single white lily. "For all the mornings you've given me, all the peace you've brought," he said softly. Sammy smiled, touching his cheek. "And for all the tomorrows I'll give you." Their love wasn't always perfect. There were moments of homesickness, language barriers, and small misunderstandings. But every time, they found their way back to each other with laughter and tenderness. When Sammy missed home, Juan would cook injera with her, even if he always got the texture wrong. When Juan worked late, Sammy would stay awake, waiting just to see his tired smile before bed. They didn't need grand gestures anymore. Their love lived in the small things: shared meals, late-night talks, quiet mornings. One evening, as the first snow of winter fell outside, Juan turned to her, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Do you ever regret coming here?" he asked softly. Sammy looked around. At their little home, their photos on the wall, the warmth that wrapped them both. She smiled. "Never," she whispered. "Because home isn't a place anymore, Juan. It's you." He leaned forward and kissed her, snowflakes melting against their lips, love glowing quietly between them. Steady, gentle, eternal. For Juan and Sammy, love wasn't a storm anymore. It was a steady flame that glowed through every heartbeat, every whisper, every shared silence. After months of living together, they had built a world of their own. A home wrapped in laughter, warmth, and small moments that made forever feel possible. One weekend, Juan closed his laptop and looked at her with that familiar mischievous glint in his eyes. "Pack your bag," he said suddenly. Sammy raised an eyebrow. For what? For somewhere the city can't find us. She laughed, shaking her head. You're not telling me where, are you? Nope, he said, grinning. You'll know when we get there. Hours later, they were on a flight heading south, toward Jeju Island, Korea's most romantic escape. When the plane landed, a warm breeze greeted them. The sea shimmered like glass, and the air smelled of salt and flowers. Juan rented a small cottage overlooking the ocean, wooden, quiet, and surrounded by orange groves. As they stepped onto the balcony, the waves crashed softly below. Sammy turned to him, her curls dancing in the wind. You did all this for me? He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. For us, the days on Jeju were a dream. They woke to the sound of gulls and the scent of sea breeze. They rode bicycles through fields of yellow canola flowers, shared tangerine ice cream, and chased waves like children. At sunset, they walked barefoot along the beach, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold. Sammy leaned her head on Juan's shoulder, her fingers intertwined with his. Do you know what this reminds me of? She whispered. What? The first night I met you in person. The sky felt just like this, like it was waiting for us. Juan smiled softly. Back then, I didn't know what forever looked like. Now I do. He stopped, turned her toward him, and brushed his thumb over her lips. Then he kissed her. Slow, deep, and full of everything words couldn't hold. The ocean roared behind them, but the world went silent. Later that night, they sat by a small bonfire outside their cottage. The stars glimmered above, and Juan held her hand as flames flickered in his eyes. Sammy, he began softly. You know what I realized? She looked at him, her expression curious. I've traveled the world, met countless people, but no one ever made me feel home the way you do. With you, I'm not just living, I'm alive. Her eyes softened, heart fluttering like the waves nearby. She leaned in and whispered, And you, Juan, you make every breath feel like a promise. He smiled, his forehead resting against hers. Then let's promise to never let this fade. I'll promise that, she said, tears shimmering under the firelight, as long as the sea remembers our names. The next morning, they woke early and climbed Songsan Ilchulbong, the sunrise peak. The air was crisp, the climb steep, but when they reached the top, the sunrise broke open the horizon, painting the ocean in molten gold. Sammy stood in awe, her eyes reflecting the light. Juan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Beautiful, he murmured. She smiled softly. The sunrise. He shook his head. You. Back in Seoul, their days returned to the rhythm of work and laughter. But something had changed. Their bond was deeper, their love calmer. Sometimes, Juan would wait outside her workplace with flowers. Sometimes, Sammy would cook him Ethiopian dishes, laughing as he struggled with the spice. Every night, before they slept, Juan would pull her close and whisper, Thank you for choosing me, even when love wasn't easy, and she'd smile sleepily against his chest. Love isn't supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be real. Then they'd drift off, hearts steady, breaths in sync, the city humming softly outside their window. Love had brought them together, broken them, healed them, and built them anew. Now it simply was strong, quiet, and endless. Because when two souls find each other, even across worlds, languages, and heartbreak, they don't just fall in love, they become it. The soft sunlight streamed through the curtains of Juan's apartment, brushing across Salam's smooth dark skin as she lay peacefully in his arms. The quiet hum of Seoul's morning traffic echoed faintly below, but up here, it was just them. Juan brushed a loose curl from her face, smiling softly. Salam, he whispered, his voice low and tender. You even look beautiful when you sleep. Salam's lips curved into a sleepy smile as she opened her eyes. And you look handsome when you whisper sweet lies in the morning, she teased playfully, her accent wrapping around every word like music. He laughed, kissing her forehead gently. Then I'll keep lying to you forever. They stayed like that for a while, tangled in sheets, hearts beating in quiet harmony. Life in Korea had slowly become a melody of shared moments. Cooking together in the tiny kitchen, walking hand in hand along the Han River at night, and sipping hot coffee while watching the city lights dance beneath the rain. Later that morning, Salam and her twin sister, Samira, joined Hwan at a cozy cafe in Hongdae. The twins had become a small sensation. People admired their beauty, their laughter, their bond. But Hwan's eyes always found Salam. Even when she wasn't speaking, he seemed to listen to her soul. "Appa," Samira teased with a mischievous grin. "You never stop looking at my sister. It's like she's the only person in Seoul." Hwan smiled shyly. "She is the only person in Seoul. At least to me." Salam's cheeks warmed, and she tried to hide her blush behind her coffee cup. "You're impossible," she murmured. After breakfast, the couple wandered through Gyeongbokgung Palace Gardens. Autumn had begun painting the leaves gold and crimson. Hwan slipped his hand into hers. "Do you ever miss Ethiopia?" he asked softly. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But when I'm with you, it feels like I'm home." Her words made his heart flutter. He stopped walking, turned her toward him, and with a tender gaze he whispered, "Then let me be your home, here, every day, every night." Before she could answer, he kissed her, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that erased time and distance. The breeze carried the scent of blossoms around them, and in that moment, it felt as though Seoul itself had stopped to watch two hearts fall deeper in love. That evening, back at the apartment, Hwan played a soft song on his guitar, a melody he wrote for her. Salam sat beside him, her head on his shoulder, humming quietly. "Every day with you," she whispered, "feels like a dream I never want to wake up from. And every time I hold you," he replied, smiling, "I realize the dream is real." The city lights shimmered through the window, painting their faces in gold and silver. Their laughter, their love, their quiet moments, all became a story only their hearts could tell. The night sky over Seoul glowed with 1,000 lights, and yet none shone as brightly as Salam's smile when Hwan took her hand that evening. The city was alive, laughter spilling from street stalls, music echoing through alleys, the scent of roasted chestnuts filling the air. But for them, the world was small. Only two souls wrapped around each other's warmth. They had spent the whole day together. Hwan had surprised her with a visit to Namsan Tower, where he bought 2 tiny locks and a silver marker. "Write something," he said, handing her the pen. Salam bit her lip, thinking, then wrote slowly. "To Hwan, you stole my heart gently. Now keep it safe forever." He smiled, and under her words, he wrote, "To Salam, my heartbeat begins with your name." Together, they locked it on the rail, the city glittering beneath them. Salam leaned into him, her head resting against his chest as the wind carried the distant sound of laughter and music. Later that night, back at Hwan's apartment, they cooked together, spicy tteokbokki and injera she had made earlier that day. She laughed as he struggled with the spicy sauce, eyes watering. "Hwan," she giggled, "you said you could handle Ethiopian spices. But look at you." When the meal was done, Hwan wiped a bit of sauce from her cheek and whispered, "You make even chaos beautiful." After dinner, they curled up on the couch. The TV played softly in the background, but neither of them was watching. Salam traced little circles on his hand, her eyes soft and filled with love. "Hwan," she whispered, "do you ever think about what our future looks like?" He turned to her, his expression gentle. "Every day. I don't know where life will take us, but I know who I want beside me." "Who?" she asked playfully, though her heart already knew. He smiled, tucking a curl behind her ear. "You, only you, Salam." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of unsaid promises, quiet dreams, and the comfort of love that didn't need words. Later, as the moon rose high above the Han River, Hwan stood on the balcony, his arms wrapped around her from behind. She leaned against him, watching the city glow below. "You know," she murmured, "Seoul feels different now." "How so?" he asked, kissing her shoulder gently. It feels warmer. Because you're in it. He smiled and whispered back, then promise me you'll never leave. Because without you, soul would feel cold again. Salam turned around, her eyes glistening softly. I promise. And under that glowing soul moon, they sealed their promise with a kiss, slow, deep, and filled with the kind of love that didn't need forever to feel eternal. The morning sun poured through the wide windows of the small villa that overlooked the Han River. The air was crisp, the sky a tender blue. It was a quiet morning in Seoul, but for Salam and Hwan, it was the most beautiful day of their lives. There were no reporters, no crowd, no glittering hall. Just them, their closest friends, and a gentle breeze that whispered blessings. Salam stood before the mirror, her reflection glowing. Her soft brown skin shimmered beneath the lace of her ivory gown, her curls pinned with tiny pearls that caught the sunlight. Her twin sister, Samira, adjusted the veil and smiled warmly. You look like a queen, sister, Samira said, tears shining in her eyes. Salam turned, taking her hand. It doesn't feel real, Samira. Today, I'm marrying Hwan. Her sister laughed softly. He's been in love with you since the moment you arrived. You were always his heart. Outside, in the small garden, Hwan waited, dressed in a simple white hanbok with golden trim. His eyes fixed on the path where Salam would walk. His heart raced with anticipation. When the music began, soft and slow, Salam appeared, walking toward him through a path lined with white lilies and rose petals. Her eyes met his and time stopped. Every memory, their laughter, their nights by the river, their shared dreams, played quietly in their hearts as she reached him. You're beautiful, Hwan whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Salam smiled, her eyes shining. And you're the man I prayed for. The officiant began the simple ceremony, the Korean and Ethiopian traditions softly woven together. A single candle burned beside them, symbolizing unity, two flames becoming one. When it was time for their vows, Salam spoke first. Hwan, you saw me when I was lost. You believed in me when I doubted myself. You loved me quietly, deeply, and honestly. I promise to love you with the same truth. In every season, in every breath. Hwan took her hand, his voice gentle but sure. Salam, from the first day you smiled at me, I knew my heart had found its home. I promised to protect your dreams, to hold you close in joy and in sorrow, and to love you for all my days. When the officiant said, You may kiss your bride, Hwan pulled her close and kissed her softly, the sound of the river flowing behind them. Samira clapped joyfully, wiping tears from her cheeks, while a few friends tossed white petals into the air. Afterward, they shared a small meal, Ethiopian injera with spicy wat, Korean japchae, and sweet rice cakes. Laughter filled the air as Hwan fed Salam a piece of tiak, and she shyly offered him a spoonful of doro wat. As the evening deepened, the couple sat together on the balcony, newlyweds under the golden Seoul sky. Salam leaned her head on his shoulder. It was small, she whispered, but it was perfect. Hwan kissed her hand. Because it was ours. No cameras, no noise, just us. She smiled. Just love. And as the city lights sparkled below and the moon rose high, they held each other close. Husband and wife, two hearts forever bound by the gentle magic of a secret love that became their forever. 2 years after their quiet wedding, the rhythm of Seoul had changed for Salam and Hwan. Their mornings no longer began with the sound of alarms or the rush of city life. They began with the soft cooing of a baby's voice and the tender laughter of new parents. Their daughter, Hannah, had arrived on a rainy spring night. The name, chosen by both of them, meant one in Korean, one love, one heart, one destiny. Salam still remembered the moment she first held her. Tiny, warm, wrapped in a soft white blanket. Tears had slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, She looks like you, Hwan. He smiled, his eyes glistening. No. She looks like love. From that night on, their home was filled with the sounds of lullabies and quiet joy. Hwan would come home early from work, eager to hold Hannah in his arms. He'd hum little Korean songs while Salam rocked her gently, sometimes singing in Amharic, blending both worlds in one melody. Every evening, they would sit together by the window, Juan cradling Hannah, Salam resting her head on his shoulder. The city lights shimmered outside, just as they had on the night they first kissed. One Sunday morning, they took a walk by the Han River, the same place where their love had blossomed. Hannah giggled as Juan lifted her high into the air, her laughter echoing like music over the water. "Can you believe this?" Salam said softly, watching them. "3 years ago, I was just visiting Korea, and now this is my family." Juan turned to her, Hannah still in his arms. "You didn't just visit," he said with a smile. "You came home." She stepped closer, brushing her fingers against Hannah's tiny hand. "Home isn't a place," she whispered. "It's you. It's us." He leaned in and kissed her softly, the little girl giggling between them. As the sun began to set, painting the river gold, Salam rested her head against Juan's chest. The air was warm, peaceful, the kind of peace that comes when love has found its forever. Their story had begun with 2 worlds colliding, Ethiopia and Korea, past and present, hope and uncertainty. But it had grown into something timeless. A love that needed no translation, no explanation, only 2 hearts that beat as one. And now, as little Hannah's laughter filled the evening air, Salam and Juan knew that their tangled hearts had woven a new story, a family, a home, and a love that would echo through generations. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.